Again, thank you all for joining tonight's workshop on how to ace your engineering interviews. My name is John Niles. I work at Penn Career Services representing the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences team. Really appreciate you being here and appreciate you, Tom, for being here to represent Exponent. So we're excited to have Tom Liu with us, a senior software engineer at Alphabet and a coach with Exponent, which is a great resource available to you all Penn students for tech interview prep. Tom has helped a lot of candidates land roles at top companies around the world through coaching in this resource. And tonight, he'll walk us through how to use Exponent's tools to prepare for interviews in tech and related fields, sharing tips and strategies to help you stand out and succeed. So let's give a warm welcome to Tom. Tom also mentioned that he wants this to be interactive. So if you do have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll try and monitor the chat and share those questions with Tom as we move along. Just a quick note: this workshop is being recorded, so if you have to drop out halfway through, we'll share out that recording um, at a later time. And if you don't want to be recorded, make sure you keep your cameras off. I'll now pass it over to Tom to share out a little bit of Exponent and how to ace your tech interviews. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Tom, and I'm here today to present you all the wonderful features available on Exponent. If there's only one message I want everybody to walk away from this seminar, it is like everything we have discussed today will be available to you already, free of charge as a UPenn student. Okay? I'd like to start the seminar with a quick survey and also as a test to see whether the meeting chat is available for everybody, right? So I'd like to do a quick survey, like if you can type +1 in the chat box if you're interested in applying a software engineering role in the future. +1 for software engineer role. Right. Now, +2 if you're interested in applying for a product management role. Right. Plus, if you're interested in applying data scientist, data analyst. Right. +4 if you're interested in applying for UI design, UX design. All right, great. Great. Thank you. So I have a rough estimation about the distribution of the interest from audience. Very good. Before we started, I should introduce myself and try to persuade all of you to stay throughout this hour. So why we're here and who am I? So I graduated from Peking University in China before obtaining my PhD degree in computer science in University of Maryland, College Park. And then after graduation, I moved to Silicon Valley, get my first industry job in chip design. And then I moved to Google, and shortly I become an Exponent coach. So throughout the years, I have been an interviewer for 60 plus instances, and I've carried 300 plus mock interviews and delivered talks to over 1,000 students in their one-on-one sessions or in university workshops such as today's. And today I'm going to present you all the wonderful features available on Exponent, and I will mix it with my personal advice, personal experience as a Google interviewer, as well as a job candidate. All right. So, as I said, like today's session is going to be going to be designed to be interactive. So we will have some fun first. So let's look at this is a very classic coding problem. And I remember this is the very first problem I encountered when I was preparing for quote unquote like a coding interviews, right? So the name of the problem is called a two sum. And given an array of integers numbers and an integer target, return the indices of the two numbers such that they add up to the target. Okay. So as a quick example, like the input array is 3, 2, 4, 3, and the target number is 6, right? So can anybody in the audience like type in the meeting chat, tell me what do you think will be the return value? What will be the expected output? I wait for 10 seconds for this. Very good. 1, 2. Anything else? All right. So, like in this case, exactly, right? So the candidate thoughts is, I know what you want, right? So I would like to pick a pair of integers. In this case, 2 plus 4 equal to 6. So I would like to return the pairs of the indices, right? So which is 1, 2, right? However, your interviewer might have something very different in their mind, right? So instead of returning one of the solution, they might be asking you to return all the possible solutions, right? So they might want you to code up a solution which returns both cases, which is 0, 3, and 1, 2, right? So this is a very common like a thing that happens in after the interview, that like the candidate thought they have done a good job, but somehow they reject me. So like how to get over this obstacle. So one thing we can do here is, like try to write down the expected output and the given input, right? If you can say to me, even before your coding implementation, to say, hey, Tom, I think like this one should return 1 and 2. What do you say, right? So your interviewer might be able to jump in and help you to say, hey, this is not exactly what's in my mind. I want all the combinations, okay? So from there, you know exactly what they are asking for, and you will be you will be implement the right version of the code, hopefully. Okay. So this is another case study, and I will ask for all of your guys' opinion on this one. So in this specific case, like there is one student of mine who is not be able to get as many job interviews as they wish, right? And here's a snippet from their resume. It starts with an internship experience with some company, and they said what they did is programmed in Python to create tables in databases for customer, maintain daily meetings, documented all the sections of the code, created present project details, and constructed easy to read workflow diagrams. So I wait for 15 minutes to 15 seconds to see if I can get any potential inputs that would like try to analyze to explain what is wrong with this resume. What can we improve based on the current version? Exactly. Need numbers, right? Need to quantify impacts. Yeah, need more specific example. Very good. Exactly. Yeah, you got it. So so this is a much improved version according to like all of yours comments, right? So number one, we embedded more specific technologies into the description. And number two, we put more numbers to quantify the impact. Right? So in this way, if this is a much improved version, it definitely becomes more appealing, and it is easier for a human to read, and it is easier for the for machine to perform a selection, to perform a screening of your resume before your resume even gets to a hand of a human being, right? You have to embed the keyword so that it matches the job description. For example, this will be a very good job resume if the job description involves, for example, some sort of database manipulation, some sort of like the pipeline optimizations, etc. Right. So let's talk about like the tech interview process for general software and software engineers, and we'll talk about like other roles as well. So it typically starts with an application. And then like these days, company would love to dish out like online assessment. This can be some sort of like a coding challenge, or can be like a culture fit to see if you have the right mindset to be part of a company. And then, like, suppose we finish and pass online assessment, and when we go to initial screening round, where a recruiter is probably going to talk to you about your potential interest, your graduation date, like your tech stacks, and then they will potentially match you towards a hiring manager, right? And then the next round is called a technical phone screen. Although the name has a word phone in it, right now most of the tech screen interviews are conducted online. So like the usual format is, for example, a resume, a resume deep dive, or it can be another coding challenge, etc. And let's suppose we pass successfully the technical phone screen that bring us to the on-site or the virtual interviews, right? So for software engineers, it can be coding interviews, it can be object-oriented design interviews, this can be system design interviews, this can also be a behavior interview. So usually the on-site interview is a mix of several formats. So sometimes it is a dedicated 45 minutes for coding interview, or sometimes it is a mixture of 2 or even 3 or even more formats in a single 45-minute session, right? So after you finish the on-site interviews, hopefully you get some feedback, and this would eventually land hopefully to an offer. Right. So we will talk about like each of these processes, and the first one is obviously the resume. Right? So here's another case study. Right? So this is more related to ML role, and this is a question from another student of mine who said, "I have limited industry experience, but I'm interested in large language models such as ChatGPT. How can I enhance my resume?" So in this case, like the student actually have some academic project, right? But like it takes some effort to tune the academic projects in a resume that is applying for an industry job, right? So the caveat here is the limitation here is like usually academic projects are like a short-lived, usually like 2 or 3 months is long. And the depth of that is usually limited to the amount of energy, the amount of time you can devote to it, right? So you cannot deliver a really in-depth project in a really short amount of time, right? However, the key point here is like we are trying to persuade the readers of your resume. You might be a good potential match for the position. So instead of the depth of the project, we try to increase the coverage of the technology. For example, if you're applying for a company who is really interested in designing a chatbot, right? So here's one relevant project you can put on. So you can say, like like the task here is to create a chatbot using some existing language models to simulate human-like conversations. And what did you do exactly? So you have curated a data set. You have performed the data pre-processing. You have used a pre-trained model and then fine-tuned the model. You have experimented with different hyperparameters you have implemented some context management mechanism, etc. So every bullet point, you may only spend a few days on it, right? However, by mentioning the keyword, the interview, when the interview look at your resume, they have a really good understanding of what kind of tasks you have performed, and those tasks are really important for training a chatbot, right? So they in their mind, you'll be thinking, hey, if I hire this person, they already have some relevant knowledge. They already have some academic exposure and experience in this field. So I can probably safely assume if I give them some proper training, they can ramp up pretty quickly. Right? So this is the message we would like to deliver through our resume. So what makes a good resume? First of all, identify the required skills. This includes all the technical and as well as the soft skills. Demonstrate how your experience matches the job requirement, right? Always be using the concrete examples, and then be as technical as possible. Don't be afraid that your recruiter is too high level to understand the technical portion of your resume. Believe me, most of the recruiters are way more technical than when we thought. And at the end of the day, your resume is going to be collected and read by, for example, a tech lead, a hiring manager, right? So being technical has nothing wrong with it. List your own contribution and impact. For example, if this is a team event, team project, right? What is your own contribution and impact? Choose the right action verb to deliver the story. Now, comes to Exponent. Like what kind of like a resume writing resources are already available on Exponent? So there are like a variety of resume checklists for different kind of roles. And we even have a resume courses for that. So it is a self-paced, so you can kind of like go through each every single essential step to deliver a really good resume. Okay. So now let's talk about like the technical interviews. So first of all, like let's talk about like all the relevant aspect for a technical interview for different kind of roles. We'll start with the software engineer. It typically involves multiple dimensions. For example, algorithm and data structure, in which it has a really heavy weight as a software engineer interview. It might include a system design interview for mid to senior level roles, but this is probably not relevant for a new college graduate. It might involve object-oriented design. This is more relevant to junior roles, for example, for new graduate student. It might also involve a low-level design, for example, how does a CPU scheduler work? This might involve machine learning if the position involves some sort of ML exposure. We'll talk about more about machine learning interviews in our later slides. This might involve like a database knowledge, like a SQL query, for example. This might involve some concurrency knowledge, for example, explain how to use logs and semaphores. And at the end of the interview, every candidate should expect some sort of behavior interview as well. All right. So how about ML engineer interview, right? It also has algorithm and data structures portion. However, the emphasis is slightly lower compared to a software engineer. It also have a test, some test on the ML concepts. For example, they might include topics such as what is supervised learning, what is unsupervised learning, what is reinforcement learning. Right? So it might ask you some common ML algorithms, such as linear regression, such as decision trees, SVMs, k-mean clustering, etc. They will also be interested in testing your knowledge in mathematics and statistics. For example, question can be linear algebra, probability, calculus, which are all essential component of ML, right? So they might ask you topics such as a matrix operation, eigenvalues and eigenvectors, probability distribution, Bayes theorem, the conditional probability. The next item is deep learning. The question might cover deep learning framework and concepts. A couple of like example architecture can be what is a convolutional network? What is transformers, right? So and for machine learning roles, there will be another special like system design portion, ML system design, but this is again for more like a mid to senior roles, right? So the focus on such senior for such system design session is more about like the architecture of the ML system, right? For example, designing pipeline to train and deploy machine learning models. Database and SQL are also relevant because you have to retrieve data from some sort of database, right? Domain knowledge. So this is depending on the mission of the company, you might be asked questions relevant to their domain, such as computer vision for companies that focus on image processing, or neutral language processing for roles for NLP focused companies, right? Again, like you will also be expected to deliver a behavior interview as well. Right. So for our product management interviews, it is slightly different, right? So we no longer have a coding interview. So you usually like it start with some like a product design, product sense, and product strategy. For example, should Amazon enter the food delivery business, right? So even if like the coding is probably not a focus for a product management for product management roles, however, like like showing some sort of like a technical communication capability is still critical. For example, they might be asking you not necessarily coding, but questions such as like what happens when you type a URL into the browser. Execution / analytical thinking. Let's say a sample question can be Facebook suddenly find all its friend request drop by 10%. What do you want to do for that? Right? Behavior interviews. Next one is go-to-market strategy. For example, how would you launch a new product in a highly competitive market? Customer empathy, user research. What method do you need to use in order for us to understand a particular user behavior, right? For example, when a user browse through all the products we offer and eventually decide whether or not to purchase a product, right? What is the user journey like? Cross-functional collaboration is always a key for a product management role. A quick example can be, how do you prioritize conflict feedback from different teams? Okay. Question for data scientist interviews. Data structure and algorithm with a more focus in Python. Product metrics, how do you define the success criteria for a particular product? Analytics, SQL, machine learning, if this applies. Probability and statistics, we have covered that. Behavior, and also as well as A/B testing as a method to tell whether a feature is a good feature or not, right? So a good coding question. Let's jump back a little bit to a coding question because like I am a software engineer, so I have more exposure on that particular part, and coding question is quite common for different roles. So a good coding question should reflect capability to understand the problem, the basic coding skills, basic knowledge about algorithm and data structure, logical thinking capability, and whether you have a sense of optimization. Your capability to analyze corner cases, analyze algorithm complexity, and if anything went wrong, are you able to debug the code? So this is an interesting diagram I use to illustrate, like how can we use choose the right level of abstraction to deliver the thoughts into our interviewer's mind, right? So let's actually have a quick brainstorm session. So these what is illustrated on this diagram is some high level concept on different levels. It starts with social groups. Think about like a family is a special social groups, right? Or a university. And then as we go down the level, we are dipping more and more into the physics world, right? From molecules to atoms, eventually to particles, right? But like the question here is, like some people argue, like physics is the closest thing we can get to the ground truth, right? So, but if physical is the closest thing to the ground truth, why don't us just like use like everything in the physics terminology to describe everything we have experienced, we have saw, we have seen, right? A quick example is like let's try to explain the concept of a technical interview using only like the physical terminologies, using only particles, using only the word of atoms, right? How do we describe it? You find it extremely difficult, right? Similar concept if you are trying to describe what a university is, only use atoms and particles, we find it extremely difficult. However, if we go like above the ladder, and if we can like describe it in a higher abstraction, people find it easy, right? Similar pattern apply to a coding interview. For example, right? So here is a case study. Giving a string containing digit from 2 to 9 inclusive, return all possible letter combinations that the number could represent. Return the answer in any order, right? So the example input is the digits of 2 and 3. And as we can see in the figure, 2 maps to the letter of A, B, and C, 3 maps to the letter of D and F, right? So we have a 3 by 3 combination. So the output starts with AD and ends with CF. Okay. So here is a potential implementation of the logic, right? So apologize, like the font size is small, but I'm not going to ask you to read every single line of the coding implementation. But what matters here is if we focus on the portion I made it bold, right? So it has a while loop. And inside the while loop, it has two nested for loop, right? So inside the for loop, it has some operation on the variable called new array, and the line next to it is some operation, a deep copy from new array to array, and then we return array, right? So can anybody in the audience like quickly identify what kind of coding patterns are we applying here? I'm going to wait for 10 seconds. Yeah, so I guess like there's no point for us to wait even further. There's no pattern. The answer is there's no pattern. I have no idea about what this particular version of code is doing, right? If I am asked to debug this code, I might just propose that I just like completely refactor this code, right? Because like this is unmaintainable, this is unreadable, this is undebuggable, right? I don't know what this is doing. Now, let's look at this improved version, right? So the code is written in Python, but like if you're not familiar with Python, that is fine. Like as long as you have some basic understanding about like algorithm and data structures. The function name is called backtrack, right? So inside the function, if we look at the portion I made a bold, it has a single for loop, right? So inside the for loop, it calls another function, and the function happens to have the same name of backtrack, right? And then we do some manipulations, etc. And that's it, right? So now I'm going to wait for another 10 seconds and hope that somebody in the audience can tell me what kind of coding pattern are we applying here. Yeah, very good. Recursion. And more specifically, exactly. So this is a special version of recursion, which is called backtracking. Well, like the function name kind of gave this away, right? But like if you're not familiar with like a recursion or like a backtracking, that is fine. But like just remember, like recursion is a fundamental like a coding pattern. If you go to some algorithm classes, like a recursion is a must-to-have like a concept, like everybody learns, right? So if you write like such code to your interviewer, the interviewer immediately recognize this pattern. And then even if like you made some mistake, etc., your interviewer will be able to jump in and help you to provide feedback, provide hint to you, because you made it easier for the interviewer to follow your thoughts. You made it easier for your interviewer to understand your code. Right. So here I'm going to talk about a common pitfall, which is an over-optimized solution. If we look at this binary tree, right? So it starts with a root of 1, and it has some leaves. Right? So the interviewer's ask is to implement an in-order traversal, tree traversal. So like again, can anybody in the audience tells me like if we do an in-order tree traversal and print out the value of the node as we traverse it, what should be the printing sequence? Yeah, very good. All right, so you're on fire. So like the right answer is 4, 2, 5, 1, 3. So it starts with the left subtree, and then we visit the root, and then we traverse the right subtree, right? So there are two classic methods to solve this problem. So one is like a recursion, and another one is called iterative, like in-order traversal using a stack, right? Both would yield time and space complexity of O of 1, O of n, where n is the number of nodes in the tree, right? So every once in a while, there is a smart candidate who said, hey, like I think I know how to improve the space complexity. I can improve it to O of 1, right? So the specific technology they mentioned is called a Morris traversal. So Morris traversal is a method that can improve the space complexity indeed to O of 1. You do not need extra space to store anything. However, do we know that the Morris traversal need to modify the input of the structure of the input, right? So you have to mutate the tree structure in order to achieve O of 1 space complexity, right? But is this all of these discussion like worth it, right? So I think like here, like a good approach is to check in with your interviewer, like after you have landed on a reasonable good like solution, right? Either you choose a recursive function, or you choose to implement it with an iterative function. Both are fine. You feel like this is sufficiently optimized, and then you can check in with the interviewer to say, hey, like is this good enough? If your interviewer said yes, then why even worry about like try to optimize either the space and time complexity, right? If you use Morris traversal, maybe the interviewer will be saying, hey, like the input is actually immutable, so it's not going to apply here. Okay. Another common pitfall is, like I have seen this problem before, right? This is just be your lucky day. So like, what is my take on that one? So in my own opinion, you can disagree with me. I don't think you have to tell your interviewer, right? Unless another interviewer from the same company has just asked you the same question. But usually my suggestion is like you don't want to trust your memory because there might be variation in the constraint of problem. Maybe the corner cases are different. Maybe the output formats are different, or they just look similar, but they are inherent different problems, right? Don't trust your memory. Like you can only memorize like so much information. Like if you have solved this one problem on day one, and I promise you after 1 or 2 weeks, you're going to forget it. Right? So like the takeaway here is always treat any problem as if it is first time you saw a problem, and analyze the problem try to identify what kind of pattern you can apply here there, and then like try to solve it, propose a solution, and optimize and iterate. Some additional coding interview tips, propose examples, right? And perform complex analysis to drive the optimization. Maintain a really healthy workflow, like propose idea first and then try to deliver the idea by coding implementation. Do not jump back and forth. Sometimes I see candidates like they wrote code and in the middle they say, hey, like I have a better idea. Let's just discard everything I've ever wrote and then start from scratch. No, this is not a healthy workflow, right? Listen and be ready to take hints, right? So sometimes we are so deep into our own analysis, so deep into our own coding implementation, our own optimization. Sometimes we would like to ignore others' opinion. No, don't do that, right? So always assume your interviewer is warm-hearted. They are helpful. They are ready to help you. So they only jump into and provide you hints if only if that is feel like you are at risk of delivering a reasonable solution. Keep calm. We have no multiple rounds. Even if you blow up one of them, it's not the end of the world. Ask for a different problem in the worst case, right? And lastly, interviewers have very different personal styles. So don't judge the quality of work based on their facial expression. So I will skip this one. This one is for a system design framework because most of you are not exposed to system design interviews at the early phase of your career. However, keep in mind this might become relevant to you after 2 or 3 years as you become more and more mature in your career, and a system. You can find a lot of resources on Exponent for system design to help you to prepare system design interviews. But a quick case study here is to design Instagram, right? To support features such as user can upload images, user can follow other users, user can view and feed up images from the account they are following. And then this is a high-level design, a system design interview. It starts with a mobile client, which connects to a load balancer. It connects to either a read or write application server, which connects to metadata DB, which records the metadata of the images, and then the object store the actual bytes, raw bytes of the images. Right. And then typically a system design is everything about how to scale up the system. So a typical question is how do you speed up the news feed generation process? We'll throw in a couple of technology here. There are pros and cons, which we're not going to elaborate here. But to name a few, we can deploy a caching layer, Redis, for example. We can use a sophisticated news feed generation service. We can use a message queue system such as Kafka to speed up the newsfeed generation process. So Exponent is a wonderful format for you to pick up all the tools, all the knowledge that is needed for your system design interview, right? So it offers this wonderful courses of system design interview, and I am one of the authors to deliver this course. So I know the content there are very good. So make sure you read the content when it is necessary in the future. So this case study is more relevant for a data analyst or a product management role. So the question is about help Facebook decide whether or not to add features to show videos that are user-friendly. So I'm just trying to throw in some random ideas. What can we do here? So we can do A/B test. For example, we can separate the users, such as a group of users can have the feature on, and another group of users can have the feature turned off. And then we can compare some metrics, such as the time spent on the platform. We can do some analytics to analyze how people engage with their friends' activities. We can do some surveys. For example, we can gather some quantitative data on whether user would find this feature useful or rather annoying. But here's the catch. Before we even do all the above mentioned tasks, we should define what the product metric look like. right? So at the end of the day, like social media such as Facebook, they care, like what they care is to increase the user engagement. But like what kind of metric should we track as a proxy of user engagement? Maybe we can say like you can track the number of the time spent on the platform, or the number of clicks, the click-through rate, the interaction between friends, or simply the user retention time, right? And then with those metrics defined and discussed with your interviewer, then we can answer the question of whether this feature help increase user engagement. Maybe the answer is yes, right? So because the user tend to spend more time when watching a video compared to a text-based newsfeed, because the video is more interesting, because the video contains more relevant materials. Or maybe the answer is no. Like video can become, if not optimized, the video recommendation might be repetitive, or the video are like a passive contents, right? People just sitting there and watch a video, and they might reduce the user interaction in the long term if the feature has no way to interact with the user's friend. Okay, so going back to Exponent, you can find a variety of materials that are covered, that covers like from data scientists, from ML engineers, to product management, and I think I didn't list, but I am sure they also offer courses on UI, UX design, etc. So like these courses are well written, and they have syllabus, they have reading materials, they have homeworks. So it is a very organized way to study those interviews in a systematic manner. And myself have been benefit from going through a couple of courses on Exponent as well. So we will skip this one as well, as we are slightly running behind our schedule. I want to allocate enough time at the end for question and answers. But like the catch here is this is another case study for object-oriented design. So like a sample question can be like, can you design an elevator system for building using our object-oriented design principles, right? So the message here I want to deliver is like you would like to ask a lot of clarification questions here. So for some simple questions, some simple examples involves, for example, like whether the elevator is designed to transport passengers, or it is mainly designed for goods, right? So are we talking about an elevator, like a multi-elevator system in one story, or we are only talking about just one elevator in the system, right? So we'll quickly jump to like a behavior interview, which is more relevant to everybody. Everybody gets a behavior interview, right? So the case study here, the sample question here is, tell me about the time when you disagree with the team, right? So in an academic setting, the team can be, for example, your classmates, right? So or your the leader of the project, or even if you want to like bring up your professor, that is okay choice as well. But like at the end of the day, like what is the motivation for such behavior questions? What are the interviewers looking for, right? So what are the interviewers looking for is they are looking for a potential match in your behavior versus the company's goal, the company's culture. For example, if the company they put a lot of like emphasis on backbone integrity, they might raise the question so that they can collect some signals to judge whether you are typically thinking for the best interest for the company, for the best interest for the team, rather than just thinking for yourself or somebody else, a single person, right? Are you optimized globally for the company? Some other companies might appreciate more for analytical thinking and whether you can provide constructive feedback, right? They will be more interested in like collecting signals such as like how did you resolve the feedback, right? So what kind of action did you take, right? If things went wrong, if somebody did the wrong thing, did you blame others, or you really have open-minded mindset and then provide constructive feedback so that others can develop, others can improve in the future, right? Or the company might value more like a self-reflection, even if we caused an outage, right? Or we did something wrong or horrible in the past. But the important message we would like to send out is, through this self-reflection process, what should I do? What can I do in the future to prevent the same bad thing from happening again, right? So when answering the behavior question, remember there is what we call a STAR model, which is short for situation, task, action, and result. So when you are delivering an answer to a behavior question, right? Suppose you have 4 to 5 minutes to deliver an answer, and break the 4 to 5 minutes into 1 minute each, and each of the minutes would devote to explain what kind of situation you were in, what task are you assigned, what action did you take, and what is the impact, what is the result of your action. Okay, so interview is a two-way street, right? So what your interview is thinking is things such as can you get the job done, right? Can you deliver the result? And are you going to crash everything on your first day of job? If you wrote a lot of bugs, if you cannot cover a lot of corner cases, if your testing methodology is sloppy, maybe the answer is yes. How much effort do they need to spend to review your code? If you have a really good coding style, if your code comes with easy to understand comments, maybe they only need a very little time to train you and ramp you up. Are you a person that is easy to work with, right? Do you actually take hints? Can you explain things well so that others can understand and follow you? On the other hand, what you as a candidate need to consider is, does my interview know the problem at all, or they just pick some random problem, right? When things go wrong, do I have enough support? So this shows if the company is biased more towards independent culture, or it is more like a collaborative culture. How strict are the code review process, right? Do they offer comments on the quality of my code? This might reflect things such as whether they care more about the time to market or they care about the overall robustness of the system. Do they appreciate my code, right? Is this a position a good fit for me, right? If I have done a really good job in my interview, I might use it as a bargain when I negotiate my offer eventually. Okay. Practice tips. Be mindful about the time, right? Usually technical interviews have 45 minutes, but you have to deduct the time for the initial greetings and the final Q&As. So typically you only have 35 minutes or 40 minutes in technical discussion, right? So focus on the medium level common problems. This applies for coding, apply for system design, apply for behavior questions, apply for object-oriented design questions, etc. Practice taking hints for hard problems, right? So when you practice, you would like to maximize your return of investment. You put 1 unit of time in practice in the hope to gain the most of it, right? So for corner cases, you probably don't want to spend too much time if this is only applicable for only one company, right? So do a lot of mock interviews, right? The first time you go for interview, you're going to blow it, right? Even if you are perfect in delivering, perfect in the tech knowledge, you're perfect in coding, you're perfect in answering the question, you're going to blow up your first interview because interacting with another human being who is most likely going to be nagging behind your ears is a difficult task, right? It definitely takes some courage and the right mentality to practice it. So practice mock interviews. When possible, break your interviews into multiple days. Now, let's revisit Exponent and then try to think about like, oh, what Exponent can offer, right? So this one we kind of touched on, which is like Exponent, like offers tons of courses for every technical interview. And we also have a lot of like practice problems in Python, JavaScript, C++, SQL, and many more different languages, right? So you can search for solutions, you can search for like videos, explanation, etc. And over the years, the platform has grown a lot. So like the community is growing, so which means like we're going to refresh the question bank, and the answers and the discussions keeps growing, right? So like from the database, like you can filter the questions by rows, by companies. You can sort it by different metrics such as like trending, newest or most common problems, right? And the mock interview platform is probably one of the most powerful features available on Exponent. So the idea here is like you can join the force of thousands of people, thousands of like job seekers across the world, and then practice mock interviews with each other. Like how it works is like you are going to be a mock interviewer and also become a candidate. No, for example, like for a particular session, you're going to be an interviewer. You're going to present the problem to the other candidate, and then you're going to watch how they solve the problem and then provide feedbacks. In another occasion, you're going to switch roles. You're going to be the job candidate. Like what Exponent provide is a standardized like a question bank, and then it offers like standardized solutions and feedback forms, so that like you and your partner can both improve, right? So I think like being on both sides of the process, both as a candidate as an interview, can improve us a lot. Like watching how others improve, how others like solve a particular question, and then now do a lot of like self-reflection. If I were that guy, how can I do differently to even deliver more in a less amount of time? So lastly, like if you want to get started today, right? The process is pretty simple. Visit tryexponent.com/login, and you can log in with your university. And then, or you can simply visit tryexponent.com/upenn to start your journey.